Today, we are excited to welcome Brian Schaffran with Motogo. In the 1990s, after leaving Ohio University 2 years shy of graduation, Brian drove cross country in a vintage VW bus. That journey's trials and tribulations inspired Brian to become a teacher. He came home to Cleveland and finished an education degree from Cleveland State University. He began a decade-long career as a high school history, math, and computer teacher at Cleveland School of the Arts and later St. Martin de Porres High School. In 2013, frustrated by the way classrooms stifle learning, Brian took a leap of faith and quit his full-time job teaching to open Skidmark Garage, a community DIY motorcycle garage. This safe place for people from diverse backgrounds to work side by side on motorcycles, or whatever is broken, became a staple in the Cleveland Makers movement. Out of the success of Skidmark that they found in the building in an inclusive community, Brian and wife Molly Vaughan knew it was time to provide the same learning opportunity to students and founded Motogo in 2019. Motogo is a nonprofit education program that teaches students confidence through building motorcycles. Brian is Motogo's first head coach and program director. I've had the pleasure of meeting Brian and Molly in the early days of Motogo when they applied to be a leadership action project with our Cleveland Bridge Builders program in 2019. And I am thrilled to say I'm serving on the board of directors and this year as president. And I am so excited to welcome Brian and highlight the work that he does. Take it away, Brian.
Good afternoon, everyone. Rachel, thank you very much. That was, it's quite, I was muted the whole time. Awesome. Thank you for the introduction, Rachel. It's nice to be introduced by our board president. It is an honor to be here. And I suppose I'm just going to jump right into it. Let me share my screen here. Okay. Yes, that is my family. That is me, the oldest of the boys, probably seventh grade. So my dad was a pretty handy dude, but I was not allowed to take shop class in school because my parents believed that shop class and college were mutually exclusive. They didn't want me surrounded by a bunch of stoners and flunkies, so I went to college and I flunked out. And then I bought an old Volkswagen bus and I moved to Los Angeles. Both that V-Dub and I were broke a lot. So eventually I had to learn to fix it myself. And for the first time in my life, I experienced learning by doing, not by memorizing. I now had the confidence to fail and learn from my mistakes. Well, that woke an insatiable desire in me to learn everything that I possibly could. So I went back to college and I graduated with a teaching degree. I wanted every kid to experience that desire to learn. And I really didn't care what subject I was going to teach. I just needed to get into the classroom. I just needed to be in front of the kids. I needed the students to get to love learning the way that I just figured out how to. About 15 years ago, I was teaching high school in Cleveland when we held Wonder Week, where every single adult got to teach their passion with the students rather than teach the subject that we've been hired to teach. So for 1 week, I got to expose 12 students to the wonders of turning wrenches on motorcycles. We were going to tear down and rebuild 3 old Hondas, and the kids would see how an engine worked. In the first 10 minutes of Wonder Week, though, I found out that not one student had ever even held a screwdriver. So by the end, 3 motorcycles got torn down into a zillion pieces, but we had no time to put them back together. I totally failed. But over the next couple months, realized that the kids had actually learned. They learned a lot, and they loved it, and they did it without even knowing it. They learned by failing. And until that week, learning always meant sitting in an institutional style room and trying to memorize abstract theories and facts. Those 12 kids became better students in their regular classes. Their attendance rates became higher. Their feeling of agency over their school careers grew. They signed up for after school activities and clubs. Their grades and attitude improved. They were totally changed kids because of failure. It sounds crazy, but it was that old Volkswagen that woke up my love of learning. And it was these three old Honda motorcycles during Wonder Week that woke it up for those 12 high school students. It is a sexy, ancient, cool machine that was the missing key for me and for those kids. Imagine the country being stocked with high school and college students that possess the confidence to fix the world around them because they got to learn with their hands. The problem solving mentality is one of the most sought after goals in the world of education. I could no longer stomach teaching kids sitting at their desks after finding the Holy Grail. So my wife and fellow educator and I invented Motogo Cleveland, a nonprofit that puts tools into kids' hands and encourages them to make mistakes through building vintage motorcycles. In Motogo, kids get used to failing and they learn to solve problems. Not problems on paper, real problems, like stripping screws and rounding bolts. Solving these real problems that are right in front of them, problems that they can touch, uses their brains and their hands. During a recent Motogo class, I was saddened to find out that one of my 10th grade students could not read. I quietly read him the next step in the manual. The next day, he sought out the reading specialist. And when she asked him, why now? He said, Miss, I have to read the manual to work on a motorcycle. That is not the kind of shop class that my father envisioned. Another student, Lillian, with damn near perfect grades, was not sure she even wanted to go to college. But after taking Motogo, she became a mechanical engineer major and is now working on her combined master's and doctorate in quantum energy exchange at The Ohio State University. And that is absolutely the farthest thing that my father would have ever tried to keep me from. That, like, you know, that's not what shop class, that's not what he understood it to be. Turns out my dad was totally wrong about shop class. It is not. It is actually for everyone. It is not for just the stoners and the flunkies. Once kids realize that all the mistakes and failures and victories lead to the ultimate success, they're totally changed. They become the students of the world, the students of life. They get to experience failure without a failing grade. And you know who needs this the most? It is students that identify as female. Only a fool believes getting your hands dirty is man's work. Women are better at almost everything on the planet. And when we finally invite them into all the spaces that they've historically been kept away from, they shine. Women listen better, they try harder, they take direction easier, they learn from their mistakes faster, they care more, they have more to prove. It's totally absurd that 51% of this country is never given the opportunity to learn from their hand by using their hands. Imagine the workforce in this country if our pool wasn't limited to just males. The country needs this. Cleveland needs it. I mean, imagine if the next 100,000 high school graduates in Cleveland all knew how to problem solve, fail, and succeed. Cleveland would be a beacon of ingenuity and work ethic for generations to come. I believe that shop class has the ability to save a city. And on the surface, though, shop class is still just school. So what we're doing at Motogo is we're luring the kids in with something sexy like a motorcycle. We can't hold the class in a traditional classroom. We have to let them experience the trial and the error in a space that doesn't feel like school. We must attract them into the garage with the one object no mother wants her child to get into: motorcycles. Shop class is not a new concept, but it seems to have disappeared over the last couple decades. We need to rebrand and revamp shop class because it is so important to continue failing. By protecting me from failure, my dad kept me from the most important learning of my life. Failure is the linchpin to problem solving, and problem solving is at the root of every single skill known to humans. Shop class is the place where problem solving and failure are best learned. And stopping sharing.
Okay.
Are we good?
We're good, Brian. Let's jump into some questions. So, as you're working with the students in the classroom, what are they dealing with? How has this experience helped them work through some of those issues that they're working on?
Specifically to motorcycles, you mean?
Or just in general, like what the students that you work with, how might they use this experience to kind of grow as students, grow as individuals, kind of work through some of the challenges they're facing?
So early on, um, we had a student that had only taken we started the class at her school, and she had only been in 4 or 5 classes with us and hadn't really gotten too crazy taking the motorcycle apart, but she had already gained enough confidence just because she learned how to use a couple simple tools that she came in back into class one morning and she said, "Hey, you guys won't believe it. I fixed the doorknob in my bedroom." And I was like, "What?" Goes, "Yeah, the doorknob in my bedroom has been broken my whole life, and my little brother can always get into my bedroom, and I didn't know that I could fix it. I didn't know that a doorknob could be fixed, but I found a screwdriver in my mother's junk drawer, and I took apart the doorknob and then put it back together and fixed it, and now I can close and lock my bedroom door." And I mean, to all of us, that sounds pretty simple, but to to a student that had never been exposed to using a tool to do anything before, for her to take that on and figure out that she could probably figure this out, I thought that was a great jump and a great connection from playing around with a motorcycle to fixing something broken in her life.
And as you mentioned, this is often a little bit of a different philosophy than what you see in a typical classroom. How do you get the buy-in from the schools to bring Motogo into their building?
Um, it's really it seems to be storytelling, and my wife, the executive director of Motogo, Molly Vaughan, is really good at telling such stories, and she can, when we go to these meetings, kind of pull on the heartstrings, and at the same time we can prove that not only does this meet state standards in a whole bunch of different ways, science, math, reading, but it's the stories can prove that this is making students well-rounded humans. And for an administration that truly cares about the success of their students when they graduate, it's almost a no-brainer for all of them. I walk in doubting that they're going to believe that this is effective, but there has yet to be a school where they've said, "No, we're not interested." It's a it's a surprisingly easy sell because I don't feel like it's a no-brainer when I just say, "Yeah, we're going to make kids more confident." It doesn't seem like a sexy enough of a sales pitch for a school to jump on, but they all do.
And what are some of the techniques you use in the classroom with students who come in and might not have that confidence yet that they're going to be able to put this engine together or work through actually building a bike? How do you get them to start to see and feel that confidence?
Uh, that's kind of that's kind of a teaching technique that I don't even know how to explain, but I don't really. I just throw them in it. I put the motorcycle in front of them and I tell them to turn to a specific page in the manual and just say, "Here's your step number one, figure it out." And it's always take the seat off of the motorcycle. And they don't know what the seat is. They don't know what the tank is. They don't know what tools. They don't know how it's connected. And I literally step back and watch them suffer for a whole hour. It takes 1 hour for that first step to get done. And it should take a person that's done it before, it's a 20-second job. But it takes a team a full hour to identify how it's connected. And then they go to the tools and they try to figure out what tool is going to help them in that quest to get that seat off. And it's that first puzzle that, for some reason, 99% of the students that come in on that first day, they are down for solving that very first puzzle. And if they're into that first puzzle and they succeed after probably 20 or 30 different tries that don't work, they're hooked. And it really is that it's me. It's none of our coaches will say, "Here, use this tool. Here's how to do it." It's it's letting them figure it out themselves and letting them suffer through it, and that victory of getting that one step done, they're sold for the rest of the semester.
As you think about the many experiences you've had working with students in the classroom, what is one of your kind of most memorable student experiences through the program?
Hmm. That one I was mentioning before about that student that couldn't read, it was a pretty memorable one. Uh, Another one, we had a student that had to take the engine apart much further than any student normally has to, and she had to do it, I think, 4 times. And most students, once they realize they have to do something that time consuming twice, are feeling exasperated and wanting to give up. But this student came in during off periods and before school and after school, and she took the whole engine apart, and she did it 4 times and was able to complete the entire build in the proper schedule. And uh, I don't think she even realized how hard she was working. And so we kind of recognized her afterward and even went so far as to give her an award. And the remarkable thing was, after that happened, the guy that owns Cleveland Moto hired her, and she is now like prepping motorcycles brand new out of the box for customers to come and pick up and take home. And he sent me a text the other day that praised her and praised what Motogo is doing, and can't believe that he was able to hire a high school girl to do this job, and she's doing it perfectly. And that kind of blew my mind too.
And that kind of story just really shows the impact of this program. Such an incredible opportunity. Do you have plans to take it beyond Cleveland to a more national audience?
I would absolutely love to take this to every major city in the country. Uh, it's the executive director and my dream to spread this everywhere. It's extremely effective in Cleveland, and it's an easy sell in the Rust Belt cities. And I would love to like start by doing Detroit and Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Columbus, Milwaukee. But I I really do believe that every single kid in every middle school and high school can benefit from doing this, and I really believe it can change education in this entire country. And it would be a shame if this only lived in Cleveland.
What do you need? What does Motogo need to make that happen?
Well, for it to be successful in a city, we need obviously money. Uh, so we need foundation support, we need funder support, corporate support. We need schools to take the plunge and sign on and get us in. And then we need the support of the motorcycling community. If we can get those three in any city, it's almost, we feel like we've got a great shot of expanding it to, uh, 10, 12, 20 schools within a city if we can get those three areas of support. Because we would need to hire a whole new set of coaches in that city, and a new director, a new program director, all the things that exist here in Cleveland we would need to replicate in each one of these cities. And to have the support from those three areas, I think, would be the key to making it work.
So I'm going to ask a couple questions about kind of your journey to get to Motogo. So you started, kind of took a leap of faith with Skidmark and then moving into Motogo. And what challenges have you faced and kind of how have you failed and learned from it in that experience?
um, the one thing that I the one big failure that comes to mind is my refusal in the beginning to get an accountant. I was told from the beginning, "You need an accountant," and I was like, "Why do I need to pay someone to tell me that I'm broke? I know how much money I have in my checking account, and it's nothing. So why would I pay someone to tell me this every month?" So I resisted this magical accountant position for years, and now I am paying for that dearly. If I would have had someone from the get-go, I think I would be in much better shape. I'm not a businessman, so I started this Skidmark Garage because it was a passion of mine, and um, I didn't really have, and I still don't have much business sense. So things have not run efficiently, and I've made countless mistakes in where I'm spending my money and why. And I'm not great at collecting money from the members, so things are tough, and I'm making lots of failures and lots of mistakes, and I'm not learning from them as quickly as I had hoped. But luckily, when Molly pushed Motogo, she had the sense to do it in a little bit more of a legit fashion and have the proper people in place to support us as we struggled through making it grow. Um, I would say most of the mistakes that I've made have been in relation to trying to grow too fast and not knowing what I'm doing at all.
From those lessons you've learned along the way, what advice would you give to someone who's in that early stages of thinking about taking that risk and maybe stepping out and trying something new?
Uh, I, I I believe that I could have sat back and spent another couple years writing a million page business plan and doing tons of research and getting all the ducks in a row. And I think if I had gone that route, I probably never would have pulled the trigger. So I do kind of encourage people to just do it and have the plan, whether it's super written down and articulated and documented or not. Uh, I feel like if you can save up enough money, cash out your 401ks, which don't seem to be worth much these days, but I cashed them all out and all my retirement and then jumped in with both feet. And I feel like if I would have waited, I would have always been able to talk myself out of making the plunge. Now's not the right time. We'll try next year, or we'll try next month, or this isn't the right space, or this isn't the right blah blah blah. I know myself, and I know that I would have talked myself out of doing it. So, um, I kind of leaned on some friends and Molly, and I jumped, and I got a pretty solid network of people that believe in what I'm doing and are willing to help me when I need help.
So you mentioned our current landscape. How how are you all looking at and what is the potential risk with funding in the education space and everything that's happening?
The big thing that is freaking us out right now is with the elimination of the Department of Education, who funnels a lot of money to the states and for the states to then funnel to the school districts. Ohio has these title funds called Title IV, and a lot of the lower income schools have access to this title money. And that, I think we have 4 or 5 schools out of our 13 that pay for Motogo, or at least a lot of it. They pay for a lot of it with that title money. And, it's not cheap to run a Motogo class at a school. It's anywhere from 8,000 to $20,000 for one semester of a Motogo class. And a lot of these schools can get this title money, and that title money is, from what I've been told, is going to no longer exist starting next school year. So we're going to have a lot of schools that can't afford us, and we'll probably end up having to cancel the contract with us, or we will continue to run it and we will eat the entire cost, because I feel like that's more what we do, but we can only eat the cost of these things for so long before we're high and dry. But that's my biggest fear right now is that the title funds are going to dry up, and these schools that need us the most, we're going to struggle to make those needs get met.
What advice would you give anyone that wants to get involved with Motogo, but since they have nothing in common with motorcycles, isn't sure how they'd be an asset to you?
I would like to pass that one off to the executive director.
That's very kind of you. And thank you. There's lots of Motogo people on this call. I feel like I need to shout them all out, including Alexia, who is our advancement coordinator. I see Ken Beck and Pavan, who are two of our board members. But anyway, so I hate motorcycles kind of, or I used to. I don't ride. I don't care about them. I have a chip on my shoulder about being left out of spaces traditionally inhabited by men. And so as an athlete, I totally relate to Motogo because it's gritty and dirty, and I played softball growing up. It's the same thing, really. And so I see motorcycles as just a necessary teaching tool to teach the confidence and those sorts of things. So don't let your, you know, aversion to motorcycles keep you from this space, because the kids that we attract also don't necessarily care about motorcycles, but they are the ones that have not found the place to belong yet and find their belonging here. Our coaches are not typically motorcycle lovers either. And actually, we've sort of shifted from, we realize hiring gearheads to become coaches is not useful, but hiring teachers who you can teach the motorcycle curriculum to are incredible. So it's a lot easier to teach the motorcycle than it is to teach a gearhead how to be a teacher. So hopefully that answers your question.
Well, and Molly, since Brian brought you into the conversation, I'm going to toss this one out to the both of you. If you had a magic wand, how would you use it for Motogo?
Oh. Well, I guess I'll piggyback on Brian saying that we are realizing he and I have founder's syndrome, and we like to just lay the track as the train is moving. But because of that, I think we know this thing is working incredibly well. So if I could wave the magic wand, I guess the track would lay a little faster in front of us, and that track would look like more people, more capital, and just more water cooler talk about Motogo at all your companies, so that we are now a household name, not just here, but in 10 cities in 10 years.
Yeah, I think if I could wave the magic wand, it would put us in 50 cities. We'd be in every single state. And because I know it works, so we don't need a magic wand to fix our program. We need a magic wand to get this in every major city and completely changing education. I think this will lead to changing the way that all subjects are taught.
Well, Brian, we thank you for joining us today and sharing such important lessons around the idea of embracing risk and failure, because it is truly how we learn, and we need to lean into that more. And Molly, thank you for joining in and sharing how all of us on this call can continue to support the work of Motogo. We appreciate you both being here with us today.